Hi, how's everyone doing? Welcome to Oil Painting My Way. My name's Rob. I hope you're having a good day. Right, in today's video, I'm just going to be showing you just a little technique that basically you can use using a single brush. Now it's going to be a number 2 filbert brush. I'm just going to be showing you on a small piece of artboard basically how to do just a random piece of foliage, maybe a little bush or a sort of like a tallish bush or something like that. I'm just going to be showing you, these are the sort of bits of shrubbery or foliage that you would have in the background of a painting, just to help blend in with the rest of the actual design that you've actually got on the painting. So it basically is just how you actually move the brush and adapt it when you're actually using the paint, basically how you actually apply the paint. So I do hope you find this useful, and the clip is coming up, and I will come back after the clip and basically just have another little chat with you. But for now, here it is. I hope you enjoy it. I've just got a little art board up here. It's a 10x12 art board. I've literally just put a piece of masking tape across the center of the canvas just to divide it into two. And for demonstration purposes, I've just put a very basic sky up and a very basic ground. It's nothing elaborate. It's basically just to enhance what I'm about to show you, rather than actually just do it on a plain white board. Now, basically, what I've got here is a filbert brush. This is a number 2 filbert brush. It's basically a long handle brush, as you can see. Now, what I'm going to show you, you have to bear in mind when you're using a brush. A filbert brush has got a round tip. Now, that doesn't represent the stroke that goes onto the canvas. Just because it's a round tip doesn't mean what you're going to put when you're coming down the canvas or going across, either way, is a round tip. The way that the brush works is all down to you. You have to get used to the style and what the brush can actually do for you. Now, it's a bit difficult to explain, but I'll try my best. When you're actually putting paint onto a canvas, let me just get a bit of a little bit of sap green here on the brush. Excuse me one moment. I've just put a little piece of sap green on. Now, basically, what you'll see, hopefully, let me just maybe start over this side. You might be able to see it a bit better. If I actually put the tip of the brush onto the canvas, just go across very gently, but then turn the brush and flick. You get a special stroke. Now, you're not just drawing straight lines or angles with an actual brush. There's various different things that you can actually do with the brush. Obviously, that will work both ways. You can basically push down to start with, then twist the brush and maybe flick, and you'll get all these different varying shapes. Learn what your brush actually does. This is a filbert, as I said. If you put a fair amount of paint on it, you can actually get a fairly sort of a chiseled sort of edge to it. Even with this rounded brush, you basically will be able to get straight lines. There's various shapes that you will get out of the brush. Just because it's a certain shape itself, that doesn't represent what you're actually going to get on the canvas. Again, if you're coming basically down, you can put it sideways on, come down and maybe just twist at the bottom, and you get different shapes. Again, if you were doing maybe something like a sort of a leaf of some sort, a tropical leaf or something like that, basically what you can do is you basically come up from the bottom, and then as you turn, put more pressure, more pressure, more pressure, and what that does, you basically get a wider stroke at the top, which can basically represent a leaf turning over. Now, obviously, there's various different shapes, but they're all in the brush. It's how you use the brush. Don't just think a brush works left, right, up and down. It doesn't. It's up to you to define how how the actual image comes out of the brush. And you need to practice with this. There's various different brushes out there, as I'm sure you're aware. Every brush will give a slightly different stroke. Now if you practice these with different brushes, you'll get a similar effect, but they will vary slightly dependent on the brush. If you use a straight edge brush, you'll get a similar to this. You might get a longer tail, you might get a broader width on the actual turn of the brush. But try these things out. Basically, the brush is there for your benefit. Don't just use it as if you're writing a letter. Try and hold the brush a fair way up the handle. Don't hold it near the tip like a pen, as if you're writing like that. That's far too accurate, and it will come out. You're too slow. The strokes are too slow and too precise. You need to get a little bit more sort of a wiggle if you're doing something like foliage or something like that, because it's more natural. It's more natural as in the environment. If you go outside and look at the environment, there's no straight lines. There's no basically perfect crosses or anything like that. It's jagged. It's how you would represent if you're doing foliage or something like that. Bear that in mind when you're actually using a brush. Now, just as an example, if you're doing maybe a bush of some sort, let me just load up the brush again. Sorry, I've disappeared off screen. Let me just I've got some dark sienna and sap green on the brush. Now, maybe if we take this as a ground, as I say, this is just a basic ground. It's just to highlight what's actually going on. If you actually basically put the brush on the actual canvas, turn it and bounce it up and down. Keep going round, bounce it, bounce it, bounce it, to basically get a shape of some sort. Now, this is going to be basically a piece of foliage. Now, obviously, the more you keep turning and wiggling, the more paint that's going to come off. It's going to get lighter in certain parts because the paint is basically disappearing off the brush. Now, these are what are giving you a tonal effect. You're getting your lights and the darks. Now, you have to bear in mind, if you're drawing something, obviously, like a shrub or a bush or something like that, you need the darks. You need the darks on the canvas. Without the darks, you can't see the lights. Remember, the light won't show up without the dark. If you look at a bush or a shrub, there's certain areas where you can see through the leaves on the outside and see into these little dark areas. Those are what's happening when you're actually turning the brush. Again, let me just load a little bit more paint up. Okay, vary the colours. Just put a few little different colours in. I'm just going to put a piece of yellow ochre in there as well. Maybe come round, move the brush, keep it turning, twisting, turning. Just keep going, and you'll get the different areas. Different areas will be represented by the lights and the darks. Keep the brush moving at all times. Just keep it moving. You've got to have a shape. Remember, if you're looking out into nature, bushes and things are all different shapes. Keep it moving. Once you've basically got a dark tone down, let's just put a tiny little bit more on that. Keep the brush moving, turning, keep turning all the time, left and right, up and down, all to the angle of your brush, high and low. Get those little dark areas in there. This is the heart of the bush. And basically, if I just get a small piece of yellow ochre on its own, just a tip of that on the brush, very lightly, just come round. Maybe let's say that the light, for the purpose of this exercise, is coming from the light from the left across in that direction. Basically, what we'll do is we'll start putting some other colours in. Just keep turning the brush, and you'll get different shades, different tones, different contrasts all the way through the bush. Let's go straight into Let's have a little bit of sap green and a little bit of cad yellow. Excuse me again while I'm off the screen. And that's going to show up on the camera. Again, just twist and turn, twist and turn. Vary the colours. As I say, this would be ideal for a distant bush if you've got something which is in the background. It's going to look like some foliage in the distance. Again, keep varying the colours. Tiny little speck of Indian yellow. Just varying those colours, but leave some dark areas. Make sure you're leaving some dark areas. Especially, as I said, the light's coming from this, so this side of the bush will be darker than this side. Leave the darks, like you've got in here, this little bit here is a dark. Leave that in there, because that helps define the shape of the bush. Now if it is like a nice sunny day and you want to just sparkle the edge a little bit, just get a tiny little bit of titanium white maybe. Just gently, very gently come round. Just a few highlights, not too many, don't go too mad. Just to highlight certain little bits of the bush. Just bring out the definition. Just gentle, just gently touching the edge of the bush. Again, leave the dark side here. There'll be certain little aspects that are sticking out that might be catching certain bits of light, but again, if you imagine this in the background with some other foliage around it, maybe what you might want to do then is just get some pure titanium white and just a touch of cad yellow, not a lot, a very small amount on the tip of your brush. And then what you do is just, again, maybe just on this edge, just a couple of little sparklers, just to emphasize that that is definitely where the light is coming from. This will help define the shape of the bush. And as I said, I mean, this could be in a nice distant bush in the background with some trees or something like that. Now obviously if you're going to be putting another bush along, just make sure you wipe your brush out. We'll come back to a bit of burnt umber, a bit of sap green mixed together, and maybe there's a smaller bush coming across the front of this one. Again, twist and turn the brush, twist and turn, twist and turn. It takes time to build this up. A little bit of Van Dyke brown maybe. Mix that in with it just to get the darks. Remember, you need the dark there. You need the dark to show up the light. Keep turning the brush alternate angles. You need to get this in there as your background. Let's put a bit more sap green in. And you'll see all of the different shapes that are coming out of the brush. Keep your lights with your darks. rough the edge up. Again, if you look at a bush outside, it hasn't got nice pure straight edges. It's got all little bits that are sticking up. Twist, turn, twist, turn. Let's go back to a bit of yellow ochre. Tiny little bit of yellow ochre on the brush. Let's come back. Start building up those tones in the bush. A bit more on the brush. Twist and turn, twist and turn. Do this a small amount at a time. Don't put too much on to start with, otherwise you'll end up with a big pile of what looks like mud. Very small amount each time, just keep topping it up, topping it up. But twist and turn, twist and turn. And as you can see, you'll gradually start getting more tones. Let's start going across into a bit of cad yellow with the yellow ochre. Start to brighten it up a little bit on this side. Again, this is where the light's coming from, so this is the side that we want to lighten up. To say, these are the type of bushes that would work well in a distant painting. If you've got this in the background, basically behind a tree or something, these are not basically like going to be a focal point, I would say, of the painting. This is not going to be sharp right up front. This is something that's going to be on the edge of a painting. It's going to be basically just part of the painting, part of the background. And this is what you're building up to make the painting. It's not just one focal point right in the center. This is just a part of the whole painting. So just bear that in mind. As I say, it's just a case of slowly adding bit by bit. Again, this is going to be the light source on this side. Let's start entering a few little speckles of white, not too much. Leave the darks, leave the areas like this which are dark, just a few. What you might find, obviously, on the dark side of the bush, like here, you might want to just darken it up a little bit if you can. Just wipe the brush off, get a tiny little bit of burnt umber on there, because this is going to be a darker area. There's going to be shadows in here as well. If we basically had a sort of shadow area, just need to get a little bit of dark sienna or something like that, just to darken that area for you. Just sort of imagine this is the shadow area of your bush, something like that. And basically what you'll find is the more of these you put together, don't forget to overlap them. Basically, you know, some are taller than others. Next bush you could put in maybe behind, coming from behind this one, it could be a tall round bush or something like that. But just vary the colours. Make sure that you're having a variety of different colours. This one might be a slightly different bush. It might have a few little specks of yellow. I'll just put a little speck of cad yellow on there, just to basically define maybe some flowers coming out. Maybe it's just turning spring and you're just getting a few little flowers appear on that type of bush. But remember, leave these dark areas. Don't fill them all in. You need the dark to show up the light. Basically, as I say, the highlight parts will be on the top because we've got the sun coming from this direction. This will obviously be in shadow. So as I said, this will be a darker, you will have a darker area around here. which will basically be the shadow from the edge of the bush. Just remember that, think of where the light source is coming from. You've got something like that maybe. Again, you could have a big tree up here, but what you'll do, you'll just gradually add these little bushes and things to your painting. I mean, you could basically leave a space here and then start another bush area. You can have a pathway going through here. There's various different ways, but basically just bear in mind when you're actually doing these things. This is all done with one brush. Basically, as I said, the brush shape shouldn't define the stroke that's represented onto the canvas. Okay, all of these tones, the darks and lights, all done with one brush. As I say, I would advise, if you are doing this, try and get at least a couple of brushes. Keep one brush for your lights and one for your darks, just so you don't contaminate the brush. But for demonstration purposes, I'm just basically showing you this sort of thing. In fact, let me just do a larger bush maybe. As I mentioned earlier, maybe we've got a nice big bush coming up here. Again, just keep bouncing around. Maybe that one's sort of behind there. Bouncing around, and just keep turning the brush. Again, apologies for keep disappearing. Just keep the load of the brush up. Maybe this is a big bush. Sorry if my hand keeps going in front of the camera. Bounce it round, keep moving all the different angles, getting your lights and your darks. Bounce it round, bounce it. Mix the colours, remember. Don't just fix on one, just a touch of a secondary colour in there, just to get the varying tones. You keep on going. Let's maybe make this a tiny little bit taller. The more you do this, the more the paint starts to come off the brush, the more tones you're getting. You're getting the lights and the darks. Obviously at the bottom of the bush, remember, it's going to be a lot darker. There's less light down at the bottom, so therefore naturally it's going to be a lot darker. But just keep turning the brush, turning, twisting, all different angles. Think of the shape of the bush that you're actually doing. Get a little bit of yellow ochre. Start coming back in with some yellow ochre. Mixing it around, and basically it's just a case of rinse and repeat. You just keep on doing this, but little amounts at a time, because as I say, if you start trying to put too much on in one go, you'll end up mixing all of the paint and it will look like a big pool of mud, which you obviously don't want. I mean, if you do get to that stage, don't be frightened. It is oil paint, it's very forgiving. You can actually just scrape it off with a knife. You might basically leave a sharp edge, but you basically would put the base colour on again, bring that base colour slightly over where you scraped off, and just start again. It's very, very forgiving. Start with more colours. Again, the light source is coming this way. Make sure you've got more light on that edge. Keep the side that's out of the light with the darker tones. Again, a little bit of cad yellow, touch of titanium white. Just keep varying. Keep those dark areas there. Just remember, bushes are not perfect shapes, they're all random. Just keep different highlights, just keep going. Again, this is the side where the light's coming, so more light will go on this side. Just try and put a few little sparklers on the edge just to help lift that part of the bush that you're doing. Again, it's not all the same colour, it all varies because the bush is growing out this way. It's not just growing out to the left and the right, the bush is round, it's growing in all different directions. But remember, this side will be in shade because the light's coming that way. You've got this bush up against it, it's going to have very minimal light. So basically you're putting bushes on, and you can just keep doing this, just keep adding. Just keep adding to it. But as I say, don't go too mad with a lot of the highlights, because you don't want to over kill the painting. You need the darks and the lights and just things like that. Leave this bit dark because it's right at the bottom of the bush. There's not a lot of light there. You've got the light coming this way. It's highlighting the top. Again, let me just wipe your brush off. Again, this would be at the bottom. This will be maybe a bit more of a shadow coming round because the way the bush is. So basically, hopefully you can see what you can do to basically build up more than one bush. As I say, this is all done just using one filbert brush. This is a number 2 filbert brush. What you need to do is get your brushes out and practice. Remember, as I said earlier, there's different shapes within the brush. It's down to you to decide how to use the brush, how to twist and turn. But basically, you can get different tones. It's all about how you apply the paint. Keep it moving, keep it twisting, keep it turning. As I say, it's a nice long brush. Try and hold it midway, and basically just apply those colours. Think of your image that you're going to have beforehand. As I say, I basically just painted this out to show you this. You could have a large tree. There could be some rocks. There could be some water in the background. It's entirely up to you, but get the concept of what you're actually going to have in your painting before you start painting it. You might actually want to just do a brief outline if you're going to have some trees or a building of some sort to one side. You know, just get that down first, and then once you've worked out where your trees and your shrubs are, I mean, this is just a demonstration for small shrubs and bushes, just using a single brush. So number 2 filbert brush. So hopefully have a practice, and hopefully you'll realise that there's more than just one way of applying paint. It doesn't just mean with a single stroke across, down or up the canvas. It all depends on how the actual bristles hit the actual canvas to define how you're actually going to see the bush. So hopefully you found that useful. It'd be nice if you put it into practice and let me know how you get on. But again, number 2 filbert brush, 3 different sort of types of bushes all completed just using that one technique. So there we go. Thank you very much. Hi and welcome back. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little clip, a little demonstration of basically just doing a small piece of foliage, just a couple of bushes and a taller bush. And basically just how you're using the single brush just to get the different tones and the way you're actually basically applying the paint onto the canvas using slightly different techniques just to get that nice soft blended image that you basically end up with. Now, as explained in that little clip, basically these sorts of bushes will be ideal for basically having in the background of an actual painting. If you've got lots of shrubs or foliage there, it just helps with the content of the image and helps bring out everything else in the painting. Now, you can try this technique with various different brushes. The clip, as you just saw, was used using a number 2 fill, but you can try that technique with flathead brushes, with basically detail round brushes, all sorts of brushes. You can actually try that technique. It's just one of the ways that I actually use, and I just thought I'd share that with you, and hopefully you basically found that useful, and hopefully you can go on and maybe try that technique out for yourself. So again, if you did enjoy it, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification button, and you'll be alerted to next time I actually launch a video. So again, I hope you enjoyed it. This has been All Painting My Way. My name's Rob. Enjoy the rest of your day.